Hello and welcome to ArcGIS Mastery course. My name is Esther Swalem, and in this lesson we will create and view different kinds of data files that can be used in ArcMap or ArcGIS Catalog. This lesson is very important to help you understand more about the difference between the files and the names of the datasets that is used in ArcMap. So let's take it one by one and see our agenda for today. Our agenda will start by opening our catalog. Then we will create a new folder named Data and connect it to our catalog. We will create different data files, starting by creating a file geodatabase and a personal geodatabase. And we will discuss what's the difference between them. A geodatabase is the most used data container to host our GIS data in one location that can be saved on any relational database. It can be saved on a relational database as a file geodatabase, or can be saved on Microsoft Access database, and we call it personal geodatabase. And we will discuss the difference between the file geodatabase and the personal geodatabase in a minute. Then we will create a feature dataset, which a smaller container inside the bigger geodatabase. And the feature dataset can be used as a container for specific data files, as we will see in a minute. We will create feature classes, and you can think of feature classes as shapefiles, but inside a geodatabase, because shapefiles is a standalone separate files. And as we see here, like we have a geodatabase, and you can add to it a table, a topology, a raster, a relational class, points, line, and polygon. And we'll discuss each one of them in details. And we will take a quick look on what is relational database and how to create one. And basically, it is a connection between separate feature classes and tables. As we see in the picture here, we have two feature classes, and we can see that we use building type values as a join between these two tables, and we do this by creating a relational class. Then we will see how we can create our famous shapefiles, and also some tables and dBASE tables, which used to extend the data for our shapefiles or feature classes. Then we can create toolboxes and a Python toolbox. After that, we will take a quick view on other different data sets that we can create, like network dataset, topology dataset, and LAS dataset. An LAS dataset we use to create raster layer. As we see in the picture here, LAS files is generated from airplane cameras or sensors. Then we use it and put it in a LAS dataset to generate a raster image from it. Then after that, we will finish this lesson by adding some data to ArcMap from ArcGIS Online. So this is going to be a very exciting lesson, and we will put you on the first step to the ArcGIS mastery. So let's go and create some data. Okay, here we open Arc catalog the same way we left it in the previous lesson. So we're gonna start by go to our course folder, and we're gonna start a new folder here. I'm gonna call it data. Okay, here we have our data folder, and it's already connected, so we can also connect it directly by create a new folder connection, so we can have easy access to it later. And we put the path for it here. Okay, and we have my data folder in here, so I can close this one and open the same folder here. When we are here, we're gonna open this folder. It's empty right now. What we're gonna do is we can right click here, or we can right click here, and we're gonna say new. And here is the different things we can add to this folder. We can add a folder, another folder, subfolder, and we can add file geodatabase and personal geodatabase. File geodatabase and personal geodatabase is exactly the same thing. The only difference is personal geodatabase using Microsoft Access database. So it's very limited to 2 GB of data. So if you are using any small data and you know that you're going to be limited and your data will be under 2 GB, feel free to use personal geodatabase. But if you want to use Oracle or SQL, or you want a bigger unlimited container for your data, you better use file geodatabase. And we're gonna see how we can create both of them here. So we're gonna start to create a file geodatabase. So we're gonna call it my file GDP. And if you double click on it, you'll see that it's empty and have nothing in it, because Geodatabase is a container for the data. So what we need to do is to right click here or here and see what options we have to create inside it. So we're gonna right click here and say new. And the first thing we can create is a featured dataset. And featured dataset is another smaller container inside the Geodatabase. For example, if you have data related to your city and another related to the utilities of this city, you can create a featured dataset for the city and another featured dataset for the utilities. Let's click featured dataset. We're going to call it my dataset. Go create next. And here it asks us what kind of projection system we want. We're going to go for projected coordinate system, world, and we're going to use the basic WGS 1984 World Mercator. Next. And that's if I'm using any 3D. We're not going to do a lot of, we're not going to do any 3D today, but if I want to add 3D, I need to define the Z coordinates for the 3D data. I'm going to click next. This is for tolerance for each point. So I'm going to click yes. So here I have my dataset. Again, if I double click on it, it's still empty. So what I need to do after that is to right click again and create new and see what kind of data I can create in here. So here I can create a feature class, and we can create a relational class, a terrain dataset, network dataset, topology dataset, parcel fabric, geometric network, and this two here is disabled. And the reason it's disabled is because the extensions for network analysis and the 3D is not enabled. And the way to enable it is to go to customize, select extensions, and enable all of them if you want, but we only need the network analysis and the 3D analysis, but we're gonna enable all of them. Now I close. If I right click again, I'll see this two options is enabled. So we're gonna right click and select to create a feature class. And here, this is our actual layer that we're gonna define. First, we're gonna define the name for it. So let's call it streets. And this going to be, let's call it streets. This is the actual name of the feature class. Let's give it an alias, streets. And we're gonna select the type to be line feature because this is streets. So we're gonna create line. We can create a polygon, line, point, multi-features, multi-patch feature, and different other kind of classes, but we're gonna focus here in the polygon, line, and point. We're gonna start by line. And if I wanted this for streets, M value represents that it's gonna have the measurement for each line. So I'm gonna select this one. And if I'm using 3D data, I can select this one, but I don't need it right now. So I'm gonna go next. The tolerance is fine. I'm gonna keep it the same way it is. Next, keep everything default. And all these options and so many things I'm gonna skip here because this is gonna be for ArcMap advanced course. And we're gonna go through each certain thing in detail, but here I'm showing you the basics to start to create your data and use it. So I'm gonna go next. Here it shows me the fields. So we have for each feature class, we have two mandatory fields, that the object ID and the geometry. So here I can add another field called street name, data type text. Another one here, we can call it length, and this is going to be double. And here you can say if it allow null or not. Default value, I can set it if I want to, and I click finish. Now I have my street feature class. I'm going to create another two feature classes. I'm going to call it intersection. I'm going to give it alias the same name. This is going to be points. I want the M values. Next, next, finish. I'm going to call it intersection name. Going to be text. street name. The main street name for the intersection is going to be text as well. Finish. Here I can create another one, feature class. I'm going to call it homes or parcels. And this is going to contain the data for the parcels around the streets. And this one's going to be polygon feature class. I want the M. Next, 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 finish. And now I created 3 feature classes inside my dataset. We can also create the feature classes outside of in the Geodatabase directly. If I right click here, I can create a feature class in here as well. If I go back to my dataset, I see the same way, but I cannot create a dataset inside a dataset. Relational class is basically you create a relation between 2 feature classes you have. So for example, we're going to create a relation between the streets and the intersections. So let's call it here intersections. And we're going to select which one. We're going to select the streets, and the other one are going to be intersections. Next. Yes, I want to be it simple, peer-to-pair. I'm going to keep the names the same way. And I'm going to say it's one-to-many because we have one intersection, but we have different streets connected to it. Next. Do I want to add attributes to this relational database? No, I'm going to keep it the same way it is. So here it asks me which fields you want to connect. It's going to be the connection between these 2 feature classes. So in the beginning here, I want to select the street name, and here I will select the street as well. So this is a point feature class, and this is a line feature class, and this is going to be the common things between both of them. Next, I'm finished. Now, when I use the street data, I can relate to the intersections directly because I have the relational class have been created. So that's what is relational class does to you is connect 2 feature classes. If I right click again and see what else I can do, we can see the terrain. And the terrain, if you want to create a feature class that hosts Z values for 3D analysis. And network dataset is basically, let's check it out. Network dataset is you give it 2 data to like intersections and the street to create a network data set. So you can, here I'm going to select the street and intersections. Click next. Do you want to model turns into this network? Yes. So what will happen with this one is going to create a network data set, which means I can use it for routing. And this routing going to be based on the streets and the intersections feature classes I selected. We're going to go more in details in the network dataset in ArcMap advanced course. So I'm going to cancel it right now. Let's see what else I can do. I can create topology feature class. I can create parcel geometric network. Parcel as well. And geometric network is basically used for utilities like electricity, gas, or sewer or water. This is the best dataset to use for utilities. So this is the main things we have here right now for my data set. And if we go back to the Geodatabase and right click, we're going to see that we have the same options here, but we have extra. We can create a table. Let's create my table. I'm going to keep it default. And this table, I can create it here. I can add as many attributes as I want. And then I can connect it to one of the feature classes. So it's like an extension for the data in the feature class. I'm going to right click here again, see what else I can create. I can create here is the raster data. So you can create a raster catalog, raster dataset, and mosaic dataset. And this we're going to discuss in more details in ArcMap advanced course. Because it's related to raster data, which most of the people don't use it as much, but we're gonna get into details in it. Here we can create a new toolbox. So if I create my own toolbox, it's gonna be empty. And what I need to do is to select to add tool to it. And I can select any tool I want to add. For example, I will add this tool. So this toolbox is used to create a custom toolbox for us that we can use based on what we need. So if I click OK. So right now I have this toolbox here. I can add it here to be accessible to me anytime I want. So I can create my custom toolbox. this is the things we have created in Geodatabase. So we're going to go back to our folder again, and we right click here and see what else we can create. We're going to create a personal geodatabase, but we are not going to add anything to it because it's exactly like a file geodatabase. But I wanted to create one so I can show you the difference between them in our folder. So if I go to my Windows Explorer and I open my data folder, here I have my personal geodatabase. It's a Microsoft Access database. It have a limit of 2 gigabytes. And it's just one file. If I double click on it, it will open Microsoft Access. And I can view any of the data inside. So that's how a personal geodatabase looks from the inside. If we close this one and we go to the file geodatabase, this is how it looks inside. And this is all Esri created files and extensions that enable you to extend your data as much as you want. And that's how it looks like. If we go back to our catalog and we open our file geodatabase, that's how it looks like on our catalog. So let's go back here again and right click, click new. Database connection and ArcGIS server connection, we discussed this in our catalog lesson. Where we can connect to Oracle or SQL database, and here we can connect to ArcGIS server or ArcGIS Online. Next, we have a layer, and here we can call it my layer. And we have to reference it to a certain layer. For example, like I'm gonna reference this layer to highways layer here, and click OK. So this layer is basically like as a reference to my data. If I go back to my data here and the highways, this is the actual data, but here is just a reference to this one. So if you send someone this file by itself, it's going to be empty because the actual data is here. So you have to send both of them, and then the person who's receiving it, they have to open the properties and actually change the source for the highway database based on where they saved it on their machine. So just keep in mind that this file is very small and just a reference to this one. If we go back here and we see how it looks like, it's just 7 kilobytes and it's a very small file, but you still need to share the other geodatabase that is referencing by this one. I can also create a group layer. It's the same thing. The only difference is I can add several layers in here as a reference, and to be a group, one group of layers, you can add it to your map directly. I'm gonna cancel this one. Let's see what else we can create. So here we can create another kind of toolbox called Python toolbox, and this one will help us to create our own customized toolbox using Python. If I click on it, I'm going to call it my Python toolbox. And when I come to this one right here, when you open it, it have one tool inside of it. I'm going to create a tool for us, and the way to edit this tool is to right click in here and click edit, and you can start write your Python code in this file here, so you can have your Python toolbox the way you want it. And you can also right click on my Python toolbox and click check syntax. When you finish writing your Python code, you can click check syntax, and I'm going to tell you that there is no errors. That means that the tool can run fine. And when you finish writing your Python code, you can double click on it, and it's going to open looking exactly like any other tools, but the only difference is it's not going to have any inputs or outputs unless you write your code to take inputs and outputs. Then your tool will look something similar to this, and you can run it fine. After Python toolbox, we're going to go to the shapefile, and also we're going to create 3 different shapefiles. One point, I'm going to call it point. And another one, going to call it line. It's going to be a polyline. and another shapefile. We'll call it polygon, and it's going to be polygon. And that's easy to create a shapefile as you saw right now. It's going to behave exactly on ArcMap like when we create our feature class here, streets. It's very similar to shapefile. But the good thing about shapefile that you can share it very easy with someone. So for example, if you have one of your colleagues and they want this street layer, you can use a conversion tool to convert a feature class to a shapefile like here, and you add this one to it as an input, and the output is going to be a shapefile, and you can send the shapefile for them easily in email or any way you want. So if we go back to the data here and we see our shapefile in the line, you're going to select just these files and add it to one folder and call it line shapefile and send it to them. And after that, we have a turn feature class, and this one used for specifically for network analysis. If I disable network analysis extension, it's not going to show up here, and it's used for turns, and it helps you to add it to your network dataset, so you can have this information when you do the navigation from a point A to point B. The turn feature classes will tell you exactly what is the turns you need to take. It's a very helpful tool when you create a network dataset. Here you can create another toolbox outside of the Geodatabase. dBASE table, similar to the table we created in our file Geodatabase. It's basically to make an extension for the data available on the feature class. The last 3 points here, we have LAS dataset. LAS dataset, as we discussed in the presentation, it stands for laser dataset, and it's basically taking the files that generated by the airplane camera or sensor, and you can make a mosaic, like put them together to create a raster from it. So if we open it here, can call it my LAS, and here you define the files that you need to add the LAS file. So if I select to add files, it only takes LAS or ZLAS extensions, and we're gonna see this in more details in ArcMap Advanced course. So after we add the LAS file, we can create a raster layer from this dataset. Our last two options here is address locator. So address locator is you can create a dataset that takes specific attributes and can generate addresses from it. For example, in the US, we have the street number, street name, zip code, and city, and state, and the zip code. So this information is going to be separate attributes, and we can create an address locator. So when someone uses address locator to search for a certain address, this address is going to be indexed in a way that's easy for the user to find the address they need. So basically, we covered most of the data that you can use, and we take it very simply here. We're not going to go very advanced in it because each one of them have like a lot of options to choose from, and all these things going to be covered in ArcGIS Map, ArcMap Advanced course. But here we just focus on how to create the data to help you create your own data and use it in ArcMap. So we're going to go back to ArcMap and do one more thing here. We need to add data from ArcGIS Online. I'm going to select it from here. Add data from ArcGIS Online. And here it's going to show me a lot of different layers that are available on ArcGIS Online. I'm going to search for street map and world street map. I'm going to add it here. And then I'm going to add another layer. But this time it's going to be from my account. So I need to sign in to my enterprise account. Continue. ArcGIS mastery_org. And I'm not going to say my password, of course. And here I can, after I log in, then it shows my name in here. I can go to my data. And earlier I uploaded two different feature classes and tables. So I'm going to add this one to my. So this is the two files I just added from ArcGIS Online. And also you can access all the data we just created on our catalog from here directly. So if I open our data here, we can add the points, shapefile, and we can add the polygon. It tells me like the spatial reference for it is not exactly the same, but it's gonna project itself onto the street map layer. And we can also add our feature classes we created. And we can save this as an MXD to our data folder so we can use it in the next course when we edit the data. So that's it for how to create the data on Arc Catalog to use it on ArcMap. In our next lesson, we will discuss more about how to edit each one of them and how to can start like add points, add polygons, add lines. So let's go back to our presentation. Okay. So after we viewed and created different data files on our catalog in our next lesson, editing data, we will learn how to add, edit, view the data and the files we just created. I would like to thank you so much for choosing ArcGIS Mastery, and we'll see you in the next lesson.